Please turn on your mic. Or maybe they're going to turn it on. I don't know.
Need a haircut. I feel like I've forgotten something. I hate that thing. I feel like I've forgotten something. Well, good morning and welcome to Stuttgart Harvest Church on this absolutely beautiful Palm Sunday. We're so glad that you are with us as we are in week number 2 of our series, Hope Walking. We're going to continue just kind of following the steps of Jesus here in these last few weeks leading up to his crucifixion and his resurrection. And so we're glad that you're here with us. Welcome if you are watching us online right now, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook. Welcome to you as well. When you came in, you possibly received from my father-in-law something that we call a worship envelope. Inside of that worship envelope are a few things, one of which is the connection card, which looks something like this right here. Our connection card is how communication is going on between you guys and us. It's how you're letting us know if you have a prayer request. It's how you're letting us know what next steps you are taking. It's really how you are talking to us and communicating with us. There are 3 ways that you can fill a connection card out with us this morning here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. One is the paper version, which is inside of that worship envelope that you possibly received when you walked through the door into the worship theater this morning. That's one way. The other 2 ways, and really probably the best way McKinley has on the screen right now, you can go to stuttgartharvestchurch.com, and at the very top of that page you will see a link to a digital copy of our worship guide. So you can click on that and it will take you immediately to the connection card. Another way that you can get to a connection card is if you were given one of those worship envelopes. On the front of it, it probably has a QR code on the front of it. You can use your phone, and that will also take you to the digital copy of our worship guide. And again, that'll take you right to that connection card. And again, the connection card, it's really just how you guys are communicating with us. And you say, who fills out a connection card at Stuttgart Harvest Church? And really, we would love for everyone to be willing to fill out a connection card with us this morning. You can, every individual, not necessarily one per family, we would love to have one per person if that's possible. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to hit the pause button. Taylor is going to turn the music up in the back, and we are going to begin filling out the information part of our connection card. Now, if you're a guest with us here this morning, you just give us as much information as you're comfortable giving us. If you don't want to give us anything but your name, that's okay. That is certainly okay. If you have information to update, then make sure that you let us know that. If you have no information to update, if your phone number and email address and all of that are the same that it's been forever and ever and ever, then you just give us your name because we already have all of that information. But if you if you're a guest with us, just give us the information that you're comfortable giving us, and we'll get that. So we're going to hit the pause button, let everyone begin filling out the information side of the connection card right now, and then we'll talk about the other thing that is inside of the worship envelope. So good. So good. It's the backup. Hopefully we don't have to use that. All right, and as you're continuing to fill out that connection card, don't stop on my account. But the other thing that is inside of your worship envelope this morning, and that you can also get to by going to the digital copy of the worship guide, is the giving envelope. Now, I want to put your mind at ease. If you're a guest with us here, that is not for you. Take it, put it aside. It is not to make you feel pressure to give in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It is simply there for the convenience of those who came this morning prepared to worship through giving. And so there are 3 ways that you can give here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. McKinley will also have those on the screen momentarily, I am sure, because he's really good at his job. And this will be the 1 week that it's not there, and I'll throw him under the bus. And so if that's the case, I'm sorry. But the 3 ways that you can give with us here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. One is to, again, go to stuttgartharvestchurch.com, and at the very top of there it is, at the very top of that page, the worship guide, you can click on that. You will find a link for the online giving. That is the way that a lot of people give here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. A lot of people, that's the way, predominantly, the giving takes place at the church in Malvern, where Harley is at this morning. He's probably doing the exact same thing there that I'm doing right here. You can, again, go to stuttgartharvestchurch.com. The second way that you can give is by texting an amount to that number on the screen, 870-600-3361. Make sure you put an S after that, because we want to make sure that the giving goes to Stuttgart, because again, as I said, talking about the same thing at Malvern this morning right now at the church in Malvern, so you can give that way. If that's the first time you've ever used that method, then there may be an additional prompt or two, but once you have done that the first time and given that information, it is as simple as texting an amount. And the third way that you can give this morning is the giving envelope, which is inside of the worship envelope. You see a giving envelope in here. You see a place we're asking for information. The only reason we're asking for that information is we want to make sure you get tax credit, giving credit. When that time rolls around next year, all of your giving is tax deductible. You can take this if you choose to use the paper version of the giving envelope or the paper version of the connection card, and you can drop those at the end of our worship experience this morning. You'll notice there are a couple of suitcases located at the back of the worship theater where you exit. You can drop those in there, whether you use them or not, honestly. We can recycle those. So if you do choose to use the paper version, just drop those in there and we will pick those up. If you're using the digital copy, you just hit submit. It's that easy. So regardless of how you do choose to give here at Stuttgart Harvest Church, we are so grateful that you are supporting your church that way. We do want to let you know, one of the ways that you're supporting your church is through the different community outreach events and the different community outreaches that we do, of which we did one on Friday afternoon. If you're not aware, we'll let you know that on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we were at the AT&T store parking lot on 22nd Street, and we actually gave away over 100 pounds of catfish, fried catfish, free of charge. Everybody that came through the line, they received 2 pieces of fish, and they were actually pretty good sized pieces of fish. 2 pieces of fish. They received a hush puppy. They received a container of baked beans. There's a picture right there. That's what they received. Thank you, McKinley. You're so good at this. They received that right there for absolutely for free. Inside of the spoon and the napkin, we also had an invite card for us here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. You say, why do you do that? We just want to let the community at large here on the Grand Prairie know we care about them, we love them. The church is always asking for stuff. We want to give it away. We just want to say, hey, we care enough about you to give away. I think it was 300 servings is what we gave away. 300 of those, well, they're gone now, but 300 of those we gave away. It took about an hour and 15 minutes. Who would have thought it would take an hour and 15 minutes to give away 300 doggone it, McKinley. Who would have thought that it would have taken an hour and 15 minutes to give that away. But it was so much fun. To those of you that helped serve, whether Thursday afternoon putting everything together or Friday actually at the event, we're thankful for you. We're thankful that you're continuing to support your church financially so we can do that type of stuff. We've got another one coming up here in the next few months we're looking forward to. I've been kind of working the phone lines on that a little bit this morning, and so we're excited about that. We love having the opportunity to love on our community a little bit here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. So, with all of that being said, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben, and he's going to pray for us this morning. And so I would encourage you, if you would, just go to God in prayer, and then we're going to continue with our worship experience after that.
I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, silver line. I got a mansion, just over the hilltop, that bright land will never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk the streets pure as gold. Don't think me poor, or deserted or lonely. I'm not just over that hilltop.
It's the one he built just for me.
Built just for me. Whoa, whoa, I got a mansion
I got a mansion
just over that hilltop.
over the hilltop.
That bright land, oh, yeah, will never grow old. And someday yonder, we will never more wander.
Never will wander.
Walk the streets that are pure as gold. And someday yonder, oh, we will never more wander. Walk the street, yeah, pure as gold. I'm gonna walk the street that pure as gold.
This morning, we're going to continue in our series, which Harley and I, we're learning this from a mentor ourselves. We're going to try to communicate this as accurately as we possibly can. And it's really a question that it's something that we've all wondered about. I know it's something I've wrestled with. It's really not a Christian thing. It is not even really a religious thing. It's more of a human thing. I know I've wondered. You probably have at some point or time in your life wrestled with this question as well. Why would a good God allow bad things to happen? Why would a good God allow bad things to happen? It's a question that might just, in this moment where you're sitting, watching online, it might just have your faith hanging on by a single thread. You may just be hanging on by a single thread. It may have the faith of someone that you care about very, very deeply, someone that you love. It may have their faith just hanging on, dangling by a single thread. Why would a good God allow bad things, evil things, to happen? It might be the question for you if you're sitting here right now. It might be the question for you that was the beginning of the end of faith for you. Which is why, for my sake, it's why for your sake, and it's the reason for every generation's sake, it's the reason why Jesus manufactured a sign. Jesus summed up all of our questions. He summed up all of our worries. He summed up all of our fears. He summed up all of our unanswered prayers. He summed up all of those things that we wrestle with, maybe daily for some of us. He summed them all up in a single afternoon, in a community, a moderate-sized community outside of Jerusalem. But very quickly to catch us up, because you might not have been here last week when we kind of started talking about what happened, so I want to catch us up just very, very quickly. This is what John told us that he saw. Remember, this is John who wrote one of the 4 accounts of the life of Jesus that has survived since antiquity. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. John, who spent countless hours with Jesus. John, who saw everything that Jesus did while he was with him, and who heard everything that Jesus said. John, who dictated all of these things to be written down. This is what he said happened. Jesus and his disciples, they were apparently stationed kind of to the east of Jerusalem. And they were stationed, they were staying in this area east of Jerusalem when word comes to them via a messenger that a very close friend of Jesus was sick. This man's name was Lazarus. And he was sick in a town of called Bethany, the town of Bethany. Bethany is located about a day and a half walk, kind of south and southeast of Jerusalem. Bethany is actually kind of in between where Jesus and his disciples are and Jerusalem. And so word comes to Jesus via a messenger that Lazarus is sick in Bethany. But John tells us that Jesus doesn't go right away to help his friend. Instead, we're told by John that Jesus stays where he's at with his disciples for 2 days. He stays for 2 days. Now, this causes people to question Jesus. Understandably so, because, Jesus has healed strangers before, right? Jesus has healed people he did not have any relationship with, and yet here, Jesus does nothing for his friend. It's confusing. It's confusing to his disciples then, and honestly, I've got to be honest, it's confusing to me today. You read this and you go, why? Why, Jesus? Why? Why do you stay where you're at for 2 more days? It's confusing, but here's, as we see the events play out, see, Jesus was up to something. Jesus is about to go all in. This is at the very end of the earthly ministry of Jesus. And in this moment, Jesus is about to go all in. He is about to push all of the chips into the center of the table. Jesus is getting ready to perform a sign, not a miracle, but a sign that is going to be so indisputable, that anyone who saw it, or anyone who heard about it from someone who was there and saw it, they heard it from a reliable witness, it was going to leave no doubt. Anyone who was not willfully blind, they were going to be left with no doubt that Jesus was exactly who he said he was. So finally, 2 days go by, 2 days of waiting. And Jesus finally says to his guys, and John tells us, he records it for us, Jesus says, let us go back to Judea. Judea is the area of the country where Jerusalem is located, where Bethany is located, this town a day and a half walk from Jerusalem. He says, let's go back to Judea. But his disciples, as we keep going, his disciples are like, no, Jesus, I don't really think we need to go back where we came from. Because Jesus, I don't know if you remember this or not, but the last time we were in Judea, the last time we were in Jerusalem, the last time we were in that part of the country, Jesus, they tried to stone you. They tried to execute you. And so Jesus, and this was really the bigger story. It was, Jesus, if your life is in danger, that means that our lives are also in danger. Jesus, we don't want to go. We don't want to go back. But then Jesus kind of does his Jesus thing. I don't know any other way to describe it. Jesus brings heaven down to earth, and he lets his followers in on a fact. He lets his followers know that the light of the world had come into the world. Hope had come walking into their lives. And he lets his followers know, stationed east of Jerusalem, as they're getting set to go back to Judea, he lets his followers know, guys, you are never going to see more clearly than you were about to see. Guys, the light of the world is about to do something so amazing. The light of the world is about to do something so incredible. A sign that you don't want to miss. You do not want to stay where you're at out of fear. You do not want to fail to follow the light of the world, because the light of the world is about to do something amazing. But still, they don't want to go. They don't want to go. See, at that moment when Jesus was going through his, we'll call it his light of the world, one of the many times he went through a light of the world conversation. And in the moment when Jesus is saying all of this, John, really, nor Peter or Andrew or Matthew or any of his followers who were there, they really didn't understand what Jesus was saying. They don't know what he's talking about. Now, we do with the power of hindsight. We know, because we know what eventually would happen, but they don't get it in the moment. They don't understand what Jesus is trying to say, this whole light of the world, and follow the light of the world, or else you'll be darkness, and I'm going to leave. They don't really get it. They'll get it later. It'll be very clear later. But in this moment, they don't get it. Finally, one of the 12 speaks up. And we get one of the more, I think, humorous parts of the entire New Covenant. Because one of the 12 speaks up. John tells us Thomas speaks up. And he tells us that, then Thomas said to the rest of the disciples, he said, let us also go, that we may die with him. Translated, Lazarus is dead. Jesus is going to die. Let's just all go be dead together. Hey, that's practically what they thought. We're going to go back and we're going to die. So we might as well do it. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going down, we go back to the community of Bethany. And the conversation there is, where is Jesus? I mean, Mary and Martha must be wondering, we sent for Jesus days ago. Where is he at? Why has he not shown up? See, Jesus does not get there in time. Lazarus is dead. He's gone. They've waited as long as they possibly can. Jesus has been tardy, and they don't understand why. It's been several days at this point. They have to get Lazarus in the tomb. So Jesus misses the embalming. Jesus misses the entombment. Jesus basically misses the entire funeral, pretty much everything. He doesn't just not get there to save the life of his friend, who, by the way, was described as the one you love. I mean, a very close relationship here. He doesn't just get there not to save us. He doesn't even show up for the funeral. But see, Jesus was up to something. They didn't see it then. They'll see it soon. But Jesus was up to something. Jesus is manufacturing a sign with a purpose in mind. And then John tells us hope goes walking. And we pick it up in verse 17, where we find out that on his arrival, Jesus finds out that Lazarus has already been in the tomb for 4 days. He's been in the tomb for 4 days. And when Martha hears that Jesus was coming, she goes out to meet him. So she goes out to the edge of the city, and she says to him, she says, Lord! And I've got to be honest with you, Martha is very, very, very much like you and I. Those of you who are watching online, very much like you and me. Martha does, on the edge of Bethany, in the middle of this crisis moment, Martha does the same thing that I would have done in that situation. Martha, what we see here is so honest. It is so, it's so transparent, it's so real that if you've ever said something like this to God or expressed something like this in a prayer, it's okay, it's appropriate. Because people who are close to Jesus, they get to express exactly what they're feeling in moments like this. Martha says, she says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. In other words, Jesus, this is partially your fault. This is partially on you. God, you could have saved my brother, but you didn't, and I don't understand why. I don't understand. I'm confused. You could have saved him, and you didn't. Isn't it good to know that when something doesn't go your way, it doesn't say anything is wrong with your faith when something doesn't go your way? I mean, because look, hey, bad things happen to good friend of Jesus people all the time. That's what happens here. But Martha's like us in that way, but Martha's also like many of us in another way, because we see in this dialogue here, this back and forth, that Martha, she is clinging to whatever little bit of faith that she has left. She's struggling. She's in crisis. She's emotional. And she's clinging to what little bit of faith she has left. She's talking to Jesus, and it's like, Jesus, you should have been here. Jesus, I don't understand why you were not here. I am confused, and I got to be honest with you, Jesus. I'm a little upset at you. And I shouldn't be angry at you, Jesus. You're Jesus after all. But I believe that you've been sent from God. But Jesus, you could have stopped this from happening. And I'm so conflicted. I'm so upset. But I have shreds of faith left. I'm hanging on to a thread that even in this horrible emotion-filled moment, we're actually going to see that thread of faith that Martha still has. So we pick it up, verse 22, and Martha says, but I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. And then Jesus says, your brother will rise again. Now, Martha assumes in this moment that Jesus is going into preacher mode. Rabbi mode, maybe. You know what I'm talking about, right? Where someone comes up to you in a moment of crisis, time of trouble, moment, crisis-filled moment, And you're like, hey, I don't need a sermon right now. I don't need that. Someone comes up and says, hey, you need to listen to this message. And you say, hey, I don't want to listen right now. Someone says, well, the Bible teaches. And you say, look, I am in crisis mode right now. I have lost somebody that I love. I don't want a Bible lesson. I don't want a sermon. I don't want some theology right now. Not right now. Martha believes that Jesus is trying to give her some theological spin on what has happened. Well, she answers. She says, well, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus, I know that. I get that. I understand that, Jesus. I know. But see, Martha's not concerned about the last day at that moment. Martha wanted Jesus to show up on time so they didn't have to wait until the last day. She's like, Jesus, I know. I get it. I know you're right. You're Jesus. But see, what comes next? What comes next is so breathtaking that we miss it. We miss it. Because very few of us have really ever felt this type of emotion and frustration that Mary and Martha would have felt in this moment. Because right here, Jesus looks at Martha and it's like he says, hey, Martha, look at me. Look at me. I mean, put yourself there. The town of Bethany 2,000 years ago. This isn't just some story in a book on pages. It's happened. And Jesus is standing there in front of Martha on the edge of Bethany, and he looks at her and he says, look at me, Martha. I didn't come walking all this way to give you a sermon. That's not why I'm here. Martha, I am not here to talk to you about theology. I am not even here to correct your theology. Martha, I'm not asking you to put your faith or your trust in what you've always been taught about death and the afterlife. That's not the point, Martha. He looks at her and he says, Martha, look at me. And then he says something amazing. He creates a brand new category. He opens a really big box. Jesus says in verse 25, remember, John was there. John heard it. Jesus said, Martha, I'm not here for any of that. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. I mean, whoo, that's a brand new category. Jesus is saying to Martha, Martha, look at me. You are looking at the resurrection and the life personified. Martha, Martha, I am the living embodiment of everything that you have hoped for. Martha, all of your questions, all of your worries, all of your fears, all of your anger, all of your unanswered prayers, all of it gets reconciled in me. Martha, what you think about me is the most important thought that you will ever have. I am the resurrection and the life. Martha, the light of the world has come walking into the world, so pay attention. Because when I leave, Martha, it's going to get dark. But I'm going to leave a testimony. I'm going to leave witnesses to the fact that the light of the world actually touched down on earth. I'm going to leave a testimony that the light of the world brings hope into hopeless situations like you're experiencing right now. And John was there and he was taking it all in. He was the witness, one of. Peter was there. Peter was taking it all in. You're seeing this entire exchange, all this back and forth, this dialogue. And then Jesus says to Martha, after saying that I am the resurrection and the life, then he says, the one who believes in me. Now that word, that little Greek phrase there, believes in me, it can also be translated, places their trust in me. The one who believes in me, the one who places their trust in me, they will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Now, look, there is no way that Martha could have taken in everything that Jesus is saying in this moment. There's no way that Martha could have completely understood the implications of what Jesus has just said. I don't know that there's any way for us to understand the implications of what Jesus has just said. Brand new category. Because just as Jesus said that Lazarus wouldn't die, but he died, Jesus says you'll die. He says I'll die, but we won't. But see, Jesus really couldn't have been any more clear at this moment. Because Jesus has manufactured a sign for my sake. He's manufactured a sign for your sake. He's manufactured a sign for every generation since sake. To show that death is simply a door. It's just that it's a transition. But Jesus looks at Martha, he sees her pain, sees her confusion, he sees where theology kind of meets the real world. I mean, think with me for a second. Jesus has eaten meals in their home. Mary and Martha and Lazarus, they have supported Jesus financially for the last 3 years. A very bad thing has happened to a very good friend of Jesus. Jesus looks at Martha and he asks, he says, Martha, do you believe this? You believe it? Do you believe that I am the resurrection and the life? Martha, do you put your trust in me? And this was very, very hard for her to believe. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be real here. Let's be authentic. In moments of crisis, in times of crisis, it can be hard for us to accept and believe too. It can be hard. Martha felt the same way. She's hurting. She is in crisis mode. But Martha musters up as much faith as she can possibly find in this moment. And she says, yes, Lord. Jesus, I don't understand it. Jesus, I don't know why you were late. I don't know why you let this happen. But Jesus, I've seen too much. I've seen too much. I don't understand everything, but I realize that I don't have to understand everything to believe something. And then Martha simply goes to her default. She says, yes, Lord, I believe. I believe that you are the Messiah. I believe that you are the Son of God who has come into the world. I believe that you are who you say you are, which apparently is the resurrection and the life. But Jesus, right now, Jesus, in this moment, in the midst of this crisis, that's all I know. That's all I got. That's it. So this exchange ends. Martha goes back. She tells her sister Mary that Jesus is on the edge of town. Mary comes out, and Mary and Jesus, they have a very similar conversation. And then John tells us in verse 33 that when Jesus saw Mary, weeping, and the Jews who had come along with them also weeping. So there is now a community that is gathered for this mourning period. John tells us that Jesus was deeply moved in spirit and he was troubled. And he asked, where have you laid him? Where's Lazarus? They say, come and see, Lord. Once again, hope is walking now. And we were about to have an extraordinarily tender moment. In just a moment. We're going to have an amazing moment. Maybe this is the reason Jesus manufactured the sign. I am very, very glad that the ones who divided our Bible, what we call the Bible, the ones who divided the Bible into chapter and verse, I'm very, very glad that they gave this verse, or this, what happens next, its own verse. Because at this extraordinary moment, Jesus will arrive outside of the tomb of Lazarus, knowing exactly what he is getting ready to do. Think about that. Jesus knows what he's getting ready to do, and if you know the story, you know what's about to happen. He arrives outside of the tomb of Lazarus, knowing exactly what he is about to do, and Jesus pauses. And Jesus enters into the emotion of this moment. We see divine empathy right here. We see divine empathy. John saw it. And later he had it written down. Peter saw it. He was there. And I think that's one of the reasons why, in one of the 2 letters that Peter wrote to the church, to the Christians in the church later on, I think that's one of the reasons why Peter probably said that it was okay for us to cast all of our cares upon him. I think that's probably why Peter said it's okay for us to cast all of our disappointments and our unresolved hopes and our fears and maybe even our anger on him. Because we can know with confidence, that's what Peter said, we can know with confidence that he cares for us. To which it would be very, very easy to ask, and I've asked it as well, but Peter, how do you know that? Peter, how can you know with such confidence that he actually cares for me? That he's not some distant God as the ancients believed. How can I know that he really cares and he really wants to have this intimate relationship? with me? To which Peter, I think, would say, well, I didn't until that day. I didn't know that for sure until that day. When I saw Jesus standing outside of the tomb of his friend Lazarus, that moment right then, I think Peter would say, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen. But now that I do, and looking back and ultimately seeing what Jesus did, and seeing Jesus in that moment, when I saw him enter into the pain and the tears and the fear of all of the human experience, everything that was available in that moment, when I saw Jesus enter into that moment, that's when I knew he cares. Because he cared for them. He cared for them. He cared for a community. Jesus, in that moment, cared for Mary and Martha. He entered into care with a community of Jewish individuals. Peter would say, I saw Jesus not rush into the resolution of the crisis, but instead enter into care with mankind. Peter would say, that's how I can know with confidence. That is how I can tell you with confidence, you can cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you. And that's why what John records next is not some trivial thing. It's why it's not just some, trivial Bible pursuit. Because Jesus pauses outside of the tomb of Lazarus, knowing exactly what he is getting ready to do. And John tells us that Jesus wept. And then the Jews who had come to comfort Mary and Martha, who had come for the mourning process, they say, oh, see how he loved him. See how Jesus loved this family, this person. But some of them said, could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? And there it is again, right? There it is. We're right back to our original question. We're right back to the thing that mankind has wrestled with for thousands of years. They wondered it too. They asked it as well. They said, why did Jesus not do something about this? This was one of his best friends. Why did Jesus allow this bad thing to happen to this good man? This bad thing to happen to this family that he cared about? This bad thing to happen to people that followed him, supported him, fed him, gave him shelter? Why did God allow this bad thing to happen to these good people? They asked it as well. He could have stopped it, but he didn't. And I'm convinced that he didn't stop it for your sake and for my sake. Because what we are about to see, Jesus is going to condense all of eternity into the span of a single afternoon. He's going to condense all of eternity down into the span of a single afternoon. You say, what do you mean? What we are seeing here in a single afternoon, in a town 1.5 days walk outside of Jerusalem, in a town called Bethany, we see Jesus condense the pain of this, the disappointment of this, the fear of this, the unanswered prayer, the anger that followed, the faith to believe anyway, and then the tears of God, and finally, the resolution to all of it. Jesus condenses in this account given to us by John, because he was there and he saw it. He condenses my entire life experience as I wrestle with the goodness of God and the pain of this world. All of it condensed for all mankind in every generation that would follow into a few hours on a single afternoon. He manufactured a sign with a purpose in mind. Jesus condenses the entire experience of all of this one afternoon so that future generations could live with hope. John continues. He tells us that Jesus, once more, he's deeply moved. He comes to the tomb and he says, take away the stone. And I believe in that moment the mourners, they would have fallen silent. I think Mary and Martha must have gasped. Because Martha says, but Lord, wait a second. By this time, because you're late. You're so late. Lord, by this time there's a bad odor. He's been in there 4 days. And then Jesus says, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? And I want to pause right there. Did he not tell us the same thing? That if we believed, we would see the glory of God. I mean, at this moment, hope has come walking. Did he not tell us that if we believe that we will see the glory of God as well? And it's easy to say. It's very easy to say. I've said it. But wait, I want to see it now. I want to see it now. But see, that's the point of the story. Because all of eternity, all of it, my entire life, my hopes, my dreams, my fears, my anger, my worries, my unanswered, all of it, for my sake and for yours, Jesus condenses all of those questions into the span of one afternoon. He says, I didn't just tell you, I demonstrated it for you. I demonstrated for you that if you believe in me, if you place your trust in me, you will see the glory of God. I've demonstrated it for you. I've shown you. So, Mary and Martha, they give permission for the stone to be removed, the tomb to be unsealed. And I guarantee you, this is not in the text, but I guarantee you, when that happened, I guarantee you everybody took a step back. I guarantee you they did. It's human nature. They had to. So they took the stone away, and then Jesus looks up and he says to the Father, now he's not, this is so good. He says, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. And then in verse 42 he says this, he says, I knew that you always hear me. In other words, I know this, but I'm doing this. I'm doing this. What I'm doing all of this for the benefit of the people who are standing here. And I think for the benefit of future generations as well. I'm doing everything I'm saying, everything I'm doing, all of these actions, this sign that I am about to perform, where I am going all in. Chips in the center of the table, I'm doing all of it for the people who are standing here. Why? So that they may believe that you have sent me, to prove that I am exactly who I claim that I am. I'm going all in. See, the most important question that anybody in this room, anybody who is watching online, anybody who is in any other church, in any other town, in any other state, in any other country, in any other hemisphere, the most important question, or anyone who is simply not connected, the most important question that we can wrestle to the ground. It's not the question of a good God and an evil world. That's not the question. That's not the most important question for us to wrestle to the ground. The most important question for any one of us to wrestle to the ground is this question. It's going to be on your screen. Who is Jesus? Who is he? Who is he? Who is he? Because if Jesus is who he claimed that he was, and make no mistake about it, Jesus made very, very clear claims about who he was. If Jesus is who he claimed that he was, all of those questions, all of those worries, all of those fears, all of those unanswered prayers, all of those things that every one of us wrestle with all the time. If Jesus is who he claimed he was, it's all reconciled in Jesus. Who's Jesus? Answer that question first, and then everything goes after that. Who is Jesus? Then John tells us that Jesus called out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And John, who is dictating this as an old man. John, he's dictating this, and you've got to believe John, he's dictating this, and he's remembering this moment. He's remembering his past. He's remembering what he saw. And I think it didn't make it in, but I think he would have probably said, and you're not going to, we couldn't believe it. We could not believe what we saw. We could not believe what we witnessed. We saw hope come walking out. It was amazing. Lazarus come out, and the dead man came out, his hands and his feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. The onlookers must have been stunned to silence. They had to have been. They must have been frozen because Jesus says to them, go take the grave clothes, let him go. Let him out. Finally, they rushed to Lazarus. They freed him from the bonds of death. And then, and this is probably my favorite thing in the entire account, John makes a statement that he really didn't have to make. You know? John has something written down. He dictates something he didn't really have to say, but he says it anyway. Verse 45, John says, after all of this happens, Lazarus is here. There he is. John says, therefore, many of the Jews, because remember, a lot of people had come. There was a lot of people mourning this individual. Many of the Jews who had come to visit Martha, and they saw what Jesus did, John tells us they believed. Yeah, I bet they did, right? Hope came walking. But I don't want us to miss John's formula. For pretty much everything that we've been talking about last week and this morning as well, I don't want us to miss John's formula. I don't want us to miss why John has given us this recording, his biography of the life of Jesus. I don't want us to miss why John did this. I don't want us to miss what John wants us to take away from all of this. And see, this is the gospel. Many who saw believed. Many who saw believed. Because before they saw it, before they saw what Jesus did, they just couldn't believe it. Many who saw, though, they believed. And this is John's message. John, as a bystander to all of these events, John, as a witness to everything that happened. John, if he were standing on this stage right now with this microphone, I think this is what John would say. He would say, look, I don't want you to simply believe in Jesus because of belief. I think he would say, guys, I'm not asking you to have faith in faith. I think John would say, I'm not asking you to believe, wrestle to the ground the question, who is Jesus? I'm not asking you to believe and to follow Jesus because of faith. I think John would say, I just want you to know what I saw. I just want you to know what I saw. Because I think John would say, I believe that if you saw what I saw, if you heard the story of what I saw, and I believe that if you, my reader, my listener, I believe that if you trust me as somebody who's going to give you a testimony that's true, that's going to be a reliable witness, John would say, I think that if you would hear what I saw and I tell you what I saw and you believe me to be someone that's telling you the truth, I think perhaps, maybe, you might arrive at the exact same conclusions about Jesus, who is Jesus. I think you might show up at the same conclusion that I did. Not simply about what Jesus did, but who is Jesus. You see, most skeptics agree. Most skeptics agree. These are skeptics who do not believe that Jesus was anyone special. Most skeptics agree that there is no way that Christianity could have grown to the numbers that it grew to by the 3rd century if there had not been an explosion of activity, an explosion of followers in the beginning, as in toward the end of the life of Jesus on this earth. Most skeptics agree there's no way Christianity could have gotten that big. That many people became followers and believers and placed their trust in Jesus and who He is, unless something really big didn't happen. Most skeptics agree something happened. Now, they can argue all day long what happened, but there's very little disagreement that something huge happened to cause an explosion of people choosing to place their trust in Jesus. Something happened in a Roman outpost on the edge of their empire. Something happened. That's not a question. But why? Think about it. Why would so many people embrace Jesus as their Savior? Why would so many people embrace Jesus as the Messiah? Why would so many people answer the question, who is Jesus, by saying He's exactly who He said He is? He's God in a body. Why? Now, the popular answer in the church oftentimes is because of faith. Faith. Got to have faith. Faith. But see, that's not it. It's actually much more simple than that. There was an explosion of people placing their belief in Jesus because of what they saw. They saw what Jesus did. See, something happened on the edges of the Roman Empire that was worth believing in. Something happened on the edges of the Roman Empire that was worth placing their trust in, which leads us back to John's little formula. Why he wrote this biography of the life of Jesus. That if you do not take anything else from the Gospel of John, I would beg you, take this. Seeing led to believing, which led to trusting. When they saw what Jesus did 2,000 years ago, that led them to believe that Jesus was exactly who he claimed to be. And ultimately, that led to an explosion of people ultimately placing their trust in him. See, John's agenda wasn't simply that we would know the story. John's agenda was not simply that we would even believe the story, believe that it happened. John's agenda was that ultimately, by him telling us what he saw, and by us believing that he is an accurate bystander, eyewitness to the events, and is telling us accurately, that ultimately we would place our personal faith in Jesus and who he claimed to be. Because of what he did on planet Earth. The light had come into the world for the benefit of the world. In fact, we find out that this event, this sixth sign of Jesus, as it is often called, the sixth sign of Jesus as recorded by John, we find out that the event of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead, it is such indisputable evidence. We're told that as it turns out, that those who were willfully blind, the enemies of Jesus, those that were like, we're not going to try to discover what there is to be discovered. We're not going to go there no matter what he does. We're told that this sixth sign of Jesus is such indisputable evidence that they decide as a result of that event, they have to put a stop to it. They have to put an end to it. This event recorded by John is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and they say that's it. So much so that we're told a meeting is called back in Jerusalem with the religious leaders, with the enemies of Jesus. A meeting is called back in Jerusalem, and in that meeting, because here's what happened, don't miss this. Here's what happened. So many people saw what Jesus did in Bethany. So many people saw that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead that they flooded back through the gates of the city. And they brought the story, they brought the eyewitness accounts of the events that they had witnessed, and they said, guys, there is an indisputable raising from the dead. There's no way to get around this anymore. We cannot pretend like this is happening in some backwater outpost. This happened a day and a half from Jerusalem. We saw it. This is legit. This is real. This is authentic. So many people flooded back through the city and said the sign is so indisputable. This was done in a community where people have gathered for the funeral of a very well-known individual. There's no getting around it. Jesus had done something extraordinary. And as a result of all of those people coming back through the gates and saying, it's indisputable, we can't deny it anymore, we may want to, we may try to, but the fact of the matter is the guy raised Lazarus from the dead. We cannot ignore that anymore. Because of that, and all of those people coming back as witnesses and bystanders to the events, that his enemies, the enemies of Jesus, the ones who were willfully blind, they gather together and they say this has to end, and it has to end now. It has to end. Not only did they decide to have Jesus arrested and executed, they also wanted to have Lazarus arrested and executed. He was also a problem. This is what was said at the meeting, which someone apparently later leaked to John. We're told that they said in this meeting, if we let him go on like this, it's kind of arrogant, right? If we let Jesus continue doing the things that he has done, everyone will believe in him. They had no idea, did they? They had no clue. 2,000 years later, over 1/3 of the Earth's 7 billion population believes in him. They said if we let him go on like this, everyone would believe. And then as a result, the Romans will come and they will take away our temple. And they'll take away our nation. They had so much to lose. They have no idea how much they have to gain. They had so much to lose, they have no idea how much there was to gain to follow the light of the world. Because God had come to dwell alongside evil men and evil women God had come to dwell alongside evil. Hope had come walking. And the light was so bright that John would say it like this. John would describe it as this. He would say that the light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. That's the way he would describe it. But don't miss this, because God didn't eliminate the evil. He doesn't eliminate it. He actually places the evil on the shoulders of His Son so that you would not perish and I would not perish, but have eternal life, so that we would not be lost. Even though you're evil, and even though I'm evil. For God so loved this evil world. For God so loved the evil people in this evil world that He sent His perfect Son, the light of the world. That by placing your faith in Him, you could have the very life that Jesus came to promise and came to give. See, if John were standing on this stage right now, and he had this microphone, I think John would say, look, I'm nobody special. I think John would say, look, guys, I am an illiterate fisherman. I am no one special. I don't know why I am the one that got to be one of the eyewitnesses, one of the bystanders of this event. But I'm just telling you, I saw hope walking. I saw it. And why God allowed me to be a witness to all of this, why God allowed me to be a witness to when the light of the world was in the world to brighten up the world, I have no idea. But I think John would say, you need to know my story. You need to know what I saw, because if you had seen what I saw, if you had heard what I heard, you would believe what I believe. If you had seen what I saw, you would draw the same conclusions that I have drawn. That Jesus was in fact God in a body, who is the light of the world, that anyone who believes in, places their trust in, will not perish. See, John didn't just write the story so you and I would know the story, know the events, know what happened. That's not why. His agenda, in fact, he tells us what his agenda was. It's in John chapter 20, verse 31. John says, these are written, I have written this, I have given you this information, I have told you what I saw, that you might believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in His name. That's His formula. If you had seen what I saw, what I seen, you would believe what I believe, and once you believe what I believe, you would place your faith in Him, and you would have life in His name. That's the invitation of the gospel. That's the invitation of the gospel, the good news. And the good news that John is telling us, it is so powerful. It is so real. It is so good. The gospel is in fact so good, it is such good news, that after reading John's account, I would hope that you would want what John said to be true, even before you were convinced that it is true. But still, some didn't believe. Some didn't believe. Even after all of that, even after the raising of Lazarus and this sixth sign that Jesus has manufactured with a purpose in mind, some didn't believe. Some, while Jesus walked on this earth, they were willfully blind. They refused to accept what there was. They refused to believe. They refused to believe that God had in fact touched down on this earth and that the light of the world had come into the world to light up the world. They refused to believe that hope had come walking, which is why, from this day, from this moment, this event recorded by John, from that day forward, we are told that they plotted for a way to take the light of the world out of the world. They plotted. They planned. They were trying to figure out, how can we get rid of him? We got to get rid of him because too many people are believing now. And if we let him go on, everyone will believe. They plot. In fact, John tells us that after this event, he tells us that Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the people of Judea. He no longer goes about publicly. His public ministry is over. Instead, we're told that he withdraws to a region near the wilderness to a village called Ephraim where he stayed with his disciples. He's there. We don't know specifically how long. It's been theorized a couple of weeks. We don't know. But he's out of the public eye because they're doing everything they possibly can to catch, arrest, and execute, put an end to Jesus. So, the stage was set. The stage was set. A plot was afoot. All of the pieces that had to be put in place on this grand chessboard, all of the pieces that God has been putting in place since the very beginning, they are all exactly where they need to be. All of the pieces are in place for a grand finale. The light of the world is ready to fulfill his purpose for touching down on earth. Hope is getting ready to ride into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey before hope will walk toward his death on a cross. Who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? We're going to answer that question and more next week. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for giving us eyewitness accounts, bystanders to these events, witnesses to everything that you did, how you made it indisputable that Jesus was exactly who he claimed to be. Thank you so much for Matthew, who was there and he wrote it down. John, who was there. Luke, who investigated it, wrote it down. Mark. Thank you so much for Peter. Thank you for these witnesses, these bystanders to these amazing events 2,000 years ago when you came to earth as in a body, just like mine. You touched down to bring the light of the world touching down. Who is Jesus? That's the only question that we've really got to answer, wrestle to the ground. Help us to do that. It's in your Son's name that we ask these things. Amen.
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences so long now. You're a hard one. I know that you got your reasons. These things that are pleasing you can hurt you somehow. Don't you draw the queen of diamonds, boy. She'll beat you if she's able. The queen of hearts is always your best bet. Now it seems to me some fine things laid upon your table. You only want the ones you can't get. Desperado, oh, you ain't getting no younger. Your pain and your hunger driving you home. And freedom, oh freedom, that's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Don't you think it comes in the wintertime? Sky won't snow and the sun won't shine. It's hard to tell the nighttime from the day. You're losing all your highs and lows. Funny how the feeling goes away. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Come down from your fences, open the gate. It may be raining, but there's a rainbow better let somebody love you. Let somebody love you. You better let Jesus love you before it's too late. Stand up, stretch your legs. Stand up as we worship. You want to clap your hands? Do that too. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we see, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Jesus, Jesus, stand by me. Oh, now stand by me. Stand by me. Yeah, stand by me. If the sky we look upon, oh, should tumble and fall, and the mountain should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. Jesus, Jesus, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Whenever I'm in trouble, won't you stand by me? Oh, Lord, stand by me. Yeah, stand by me. Jesus, stand by me. Stand by me. Oh, stand by me, Lord. Stand by me. When the night, whoa, has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we see, just as long as you stand by me. Jesus, Jesus, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Yeah, stand by me.
All right, you can be seated if you want to. You can stand up if you want to. Completely up to you. I'm going to stand. Thank you so much for worshiping with us here this morning at Stuttgart Harvest Church. We're going to continue this series, Hope Walking, next Sunday, and I believe we are going to do a really cool, fun, creative way of answering the question, who is Jesus? Because if he is who he claimed that he was, it changes everything. And everything gets reconciled in him. And so we're excited about that, what we're going to get to teach next week. Let's see. If you have not already, you can hit submit on those online connection cards, all of that. Don't forget, at the back of the worship theater this morning, you've got some suitcases which are open. You can drop your paper versions of the connection cards, the giving envelopes, whether you use it or not. You can drop that in there. We'll pick those up. And with that being said, we are moving into what is often called Super Bowl Sunday at the church, which is Easter Sunday. We're excited about it. We got plenty of room, so bring anybody that would like to come. We're going to answer that question. Who is Jesus? And we're excited about continuing this series, Hope Walking. So with all of that being said, I think we are ready. Everybody good? All right. Sounds like we're ready to go. So I'm going to pray for us, go out into our week. Hope to see you back next week. Those of you who are watching online, thanks for watching, and we will hopefully maybe get to see you guys soon in person. And so with that being said, I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to be kind of hanging out in the back, say hi to everybody. And, okay, I got to shut up. That's it. I'm praying now. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for this series, Hope Walking, the fact that you did come walking. You walked on the earth. You walked on the light of the world did come down, touch the surface of the earth to make it indisputable, unquestionable, that you do care for us, you do love us, and that you do want a relationship with us. A relationship that's described as Abba Father, Daddy, Daddy. A relationship like a daddy to a daughter, or a daddy to a son. And we're speechless. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for this church. Thank you for each person that is involved in serving our community. As we simply are trying to serve people, love people, into a relationship with you. Not for our glory, but simply reflecting your glory. It's in Jesus' name.